I'm pretty sure this is the first game I've ever played as a monkey, unless you're a racist. But in this game, we're not just any monkey. We are the Monkey King. Not that one. This one. Well, actually, not that one either. But you know, if you seen one monkey, you seen them all. Black Myth Wukong was developed by a little known company called Game Science. And I wish I could tell you more about them, but their website was in Chinese. They do have a couple other games under their belt, Art of War, Red Tides, and something called 100 Heroes. I'm 90% sure they're both mobile games. Recently, some Chinese game developers have been dipping their toes into the AAA space. And let me not even say dipping their toes, cause they've been stepping. First we had NeoWiz and Round 8 popping out with Liza P, and now Game Science with Black Myth Wukong. I hope the devs at the top are real uncomfortable, cause I see a shift coming. I'm looking at you, Ubisoft. Black Myth Wukong is an action RPG inspired by an old story called Journey to the West. And although the devs swore up and down it's not a Souls-like, they did a damn good job of making a Souls-like. You play as an unnamed monkey called the Destined One, and you're on a journey to recover the relics of Sun Wukong to bring him back. The game is mostly straightforward. It's a semi-open linear type of world that's just teeming with enemies. Although it is linear, the world's pretty big. You can get lost pretty easily. There's 6 different chapters, all with different environments and enemies. One chapter, you're in a desert wasteland fighting giant rats that can breathe fire and self-destruct like a Pokemon.
Guard the gate.
He shouldn't respawn. And in the next, you're on a frozen lake on a mountain fighting a lightning dragon. It gets crazy. Of course, the environment itself is stunning. There's a lot of hidden gems in each chapter that you can miss very easily if you don't explore. You'll miss out on lore, gear, and even some bosses. This isn't the type of game you want to rush through. If you see an area that looks interesting, take a minute to go look around. The worst that can happen is you run into an invisible wall. There's a lot of those. But hey, pros are, you don't have to worry about falling off most ledges. Cons? You'll be disappointed sometimes when you can't get to where you thought you could. On release, there wasn't any type of map or on-screen compass to guide you like in some other games, but with enough people complaining, anything can happen. That's the point for the devs. As you progress through each chapter, you'll find different shrines that act as your bonfires. You know, fast travel points, a place to do your upgrades, and access a shop. Before the updates, you had to go to one of the shrines before you could fast travel. But now you can do it straight from the map, which is another W. Because aside from fast traveling, your other real mode of transportation is your feet until you get to the end game. And the Destined One really isn't that fast. The combat system is pretty decent. Mostly you'll be using your basic attack and dodging, but you do have a couple ways you can spice it up. You get 3 different spell slots, 2 transformation slots, and 1 item slot that you can mix and match. The Destined One also has 3 different attack stances that all give you some different options. The smash stance, the first stance you get, and probably the one you'll use the most. If you ask me, this is the best stance for a heads up, blow for blow type playstyle, which is what I like. And this unique move also allows you to do what they call a see-through. It's kind of like a counter or parry if you time it right. You'll eat an enemy's attack and take no damage and then bust them over the head. It's not easy to master, but well worth it. Next up is the pillar stance. This stance is a bit more defensive with the ability to perch on your staff to completely avoid some incoming attacks. With more focus points, the higher your perch. And this stance ability is the best one for crowd control, allowing you to swing on your staff and attack in every direction, like a get off me tool with a finishing blow at the end. And last we have the thrust stance. This one I feel is the best for boss fights and any 1v1 in general, with the ability to create space quickly and capitalize on it with quick strikes or a powerful blow. And there are certain staffs that can change your moveset slightly, and this stance benefits from it the most. If you disagree with me on any of these stances, you're wrong, respectfully, but let me know in the comments. One thing I do wish the devs took more time to do is make all the different stances flow seamlessly. You can switch between them mid-fight, but it's not super smooth. All I really want to do is to be able to chain every stance's ability together. The spells are a bit underwhelming, but I'm assuming they're all things Wukong could actually do. No point in wanting him to do a Kamehameha. There are 3 different types of spells: Mysticism, Alteration, and Strand. You must have one of each kind equipped, no mixing and matching. So, I don't really know how to explain your mysticism spells in a general sense because all of them are drastically different from the others. So let's just say they're your utility spells. Whichever one you decide to use will probably be your most used spell. They have offensive and defensive uses. Alteration is your defensive spell with options for parrying and evading. You use them a lot too. And last, strand spells. During your first playthrough, you'll only have one strand spell, and in New Game Plus you'll get another one. These might just be your strongest spells, but personally I barely use them. And just like with mysticism, they're hard to generalize, so let's just call them your trump card spells. But like I said, overall the spells are a bit underwhelming, but they get the job done. Not too flashy, not overpowered, just balanced if you ask me. There's two types of transformation. I like to call them flash transformations and full transformations. A flash transformation allows you to change into a spirit and use one powerful ability before changing right back to normal. There's about 50 of these, and full transformations allow you to change into more powerful spirits and have full control over them until you are defeated or until your might, the energy that you need to transform, runs out. Whatever happens first. And lastly, we have 4 different combat items to choose from. They're all effective in their own way, with 2 of them being pretty niche and the other 2 being universal. They also have passive effects that might make you favor one over the other. And there's lots of other little pills and potions and curios and stuff for buffs and status effects. There are many different staffs and armor sets in Black Myth Wukong. They all have their own unique perks to make them useful in certain situations and playstyles. I suggest picking your armor based off the perks and not the stats. Most of them can be upgraded and cap out at the mythical level, so regardless of the stats when you get them, they'll probably be on par with the best sets you can find in the end. The staffs are a bit different, also with unique perks but varying stats. They're not upgradable the same way armor is. The staffs have branching paths that make them stronger, but can also change their perks. You can always revert back to a previous staff on a tree or go down a different path for different perks if you see fit. The leveling in Wukong isn't very Souls-like. You're not just dumping points into strength to make you hit harder. Instead, every time you level up, you get a skill point to put into one of your many skill trees. Almost every aspect of combat has its own skill tree. Every stance and every spell. Load all your points into your favorite spell, and whenever you want to try a different one, you can just remove your points for free at any time, which comes in very handy if you get stuck on a boss. And that's a pretty big if, because most of the bosses aren't too hard. I beat a lot of them first try, and if I didn't beat them first try, then it probably only took me another 2 or 3 tries. But not being hard doesn't mean the bosses weren't good. There's different levels to the boss fights. Let me break it down for you. You got your C tier bosses. These are the random encounter bosses that'll just pop up when you're exploring. Those are your first take dubs most likely, unless you just weren't prepared for a fight. These guys aren't memorable. You will almost completely forget about them after the next boss. Then we have B tier bosses. These are the bosses you'll come across progressing the story before you get to the main boss of a chapter. And some hidden bosses fall here too. In A tier, we have more hidden / secret bosses that you'll have to complete quests to even come across, and some final bosses from some of the chapters. And lastly, we have S tier bosses. Personally, I would only put 2, maybe 3 bosses in S tier. These are the bosses that actually make you work. These are the bosses that'll make you experiment with different spells and have you searching YouTube for guides on how to beat them. Since I only have 2 surefire bosses in S, let's talk about them real quick. First up, we have Yellow Long. To fight this boss, you actually have to do some backtracking and exploring for quests and whatnot. So he's a boss you can miss very easily. This dude brings the pain, his speed, his power. It took many tries for me to beat him, and now he's my bitch that I play around with whenever I run into other hard bosses. And second, we have Erlang Shen. Mild spoiler alert. Erlang Shen is the first person you fight when starting a new game, and it's a massive fight. You actually have the opportunity to fight him again later in the game, but it's optional and very easily missed, just like all the good stuff in this game. This is the best boss battle in the game by far. For me, it was also the most challenging. By far. I fought this nigga Erlang Shen for 3 days. If you comment skill issue, you're getting banned. But yes, 3 days. I went blow for blow with Erlang. Brody had me digging deep in my bag of tricks, trying everything imaginable. I don't think I've ever struggled this much with a boss, period. But just like all the others, he fell in the end. And now we have another nigga on the fuck you list. It's fuck Erlang Shen and Lubu to the death of me. People are gonna think I'm racist from how much I hate these two. But overall, the boss experience is pretty good. There's like 80 different bosses. They could have split the game up and made 2 DLCs with that many bosses and made more money, and nobody would have complained. W game science. But this is where the game is lacking a bit. The story of Black Myth Wukong is a different interpretation of the story Journey to the West. As you progress, a lot of characters will make reference to the real Wukong and how you're on a similar path. Personally, I don't really like the story in the game specifically. There's never a point in the game where I felt like the stakes are high. Let's use Liza P for example. That was based on the story of Pinocchio with a dark twist. When Hotel Krat got attacked and the town around it got destroyed, that was a point where things felt more serious. It was harder just to make it through the levels at that point, because if you were sloppy, even the fodder characters would put you on a t-shirt. Black Myth Wukong doesn't really have that. Combat wise, all the levels were a breeze, and it never felt like there was an actual big bad guy we're trying to beat. We're on a journey to bring back Wukong, and with all the trouble he caused for the Celestial Court, you'd think they would try to stop you, but it feels like a really smooth journey. Maybe have Erlang Shen pop up periodically and talk shit, or have to fight him every once in a while, but no, he's a tutorial boss and then an easily missed optional boss. This is the guy who beat Wukong in the first place. Why is he not trying to stop you at all? Maybe I'm tripping, but I just never felt there was a big obstacle to our goal, and just having that would have made the game better to me. Adding some cohesion could have done wonders for the story, and again, that's where Erlang could have came in. Just make every end of chapter boss say, Erlang told me you would be coming, or something. Buddha, anybody. I'm sorry, I just feel like every game that's combat story based, that's not sport related, needs a main antagonist, and the lack of one really hurts it for me. Having every chapter be its own mini story kinda made it harder for me to really get into everything. As soon as I felt like I understood what was going on, the chapter would end and things would start right back over. One change I would have made, instead of every final chapter boss having their own selfish reasons for wanting to keep the relics, they could have said something like, Buddha entrusted me with this relic for XYZ. No, you can't have it. We can't let you bring Wukong back. Just every boss saying something simple like that would have just changed a lot about the story and made it feel less like a boss rush. On the other hand, after you beat every chapter, you get to see a sort of music video with a different animation style from the game. They have all sorts of hidden meanings to them that's up for interpretation. The one for chapter 6 can only be attained through the true ending of the game, so just like all the other good stuff in the game, you can miss it pretty easily. But overall, I like Black Myth Wukong. It was a really fun play and just challenging enough without being overwhelming, besides the Erlang fight. I like how the game rewards you big time for exploring and immersing yourself, although it is a bit of a double-edged sword. Maybe offer a little more guidance with side quests so everybody can experience the best parts of the game. You shouldn't need tutorials on YouTube to teach you how to get certain things. But now that I'm actually recording the review, I guess I can kind of understand why the bad ending and the true ending are so different. You can rush through the game and get the bad ending really easily, but to get the true ending, you kind of have to be true to the game in a way. You have to look around, you have to explore, you have to do quests. So I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. Now, if I was doing a 10-point grading scale, Black Myth Wukong would be a 9, honestly. Simply because the story never hooked me. But since I'm doing a 5-point grading scale, and we don't do halves, Black Myth Wukong gets a 5. Perfect score. Yeah, it's a cop-out, I don't give a fuck. I like the game. If you want an action game that's fun, this is the one. Don't go buying it for the story. Not every game I review is gonna be a 5, but I can't lie, if the game isn't worth the review, I probably won't make one. But shit, what are you waiting for? Go play Black Myth Wukong.